You've got $1,000 sitting in your account right now, and everyone's telling you to invest it. But here's what's driving you crazy. Nobody's actually showing you the specific steps at work in 2026. I'm about to give you the exact blueprint that regular Americans are using to turn their first $1,000 into real wealth. And I promise you, it's simpler than you think. Welcome to Finance Flash, where we break down money moves for Americans who are done with the confusion and ready for action. My goal today is to give you a clear, step-by-step plan you can execute this week. But before we get into the exciting stuff, I need to tell you something that might save you from a costly mistake that takes years to recover from. Here's my legal disclaimer because it matters. I'm not a financial advisor, and this video is purely educational content. Always do your own research and consult with professionals before making any investment decisions. Now, let me ask you something honest. Is your $1,000 actually ready to invest? Or are you about to make the mistake that 80% of beginners make? I know you didn't click this video to hear wait before investing, but this reality check could be the difference between building wealth and losing money. Here's the situation most people ignore. If you don't have at least $500 to $1,000 in emergency savings sitting somewhere safe, investing is actually dangerous for your financial health. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when you skip this step. You invest your $1,000 today, feeling great about your decision. 2 months later, your car breaks down and the mechanic says it's going to cost $700 to fix. Without emergency savings, you're forced to sell your investments to cover the repair. And here's the cruel part: the market is probably down when you need that money most. You sell at a loss, pay the bill, and walk away, convinced that investing doesn't work for regular people. But the problem wasn't investing, it was the order of operations. Your emergency fund is the foundation that keeps you from being forced to sell at the worst possible time. Start with 1 month of basic expenses in a high-yield savings account. In 2026, these accounts are paying around 4 to 5% interest, which isn't amazing, but it's better than regular savings. Think of this as insurance that protects your investments from life's inevitable surprises. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room that makes people uncomfortable. If you're carrying credit card balances charging 80%, 22%, or even 25% interest, we need to have an honest conversation. Investing while carrying high-interest debt is like trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is wide open. Do the math with me for a second. The stock market historically returns about 10% per year on average. Your credit card is charging you 22% guaranteed. You're essentially paying 22% to borrow money so you can invest it and maybe make 10%, which is financial self-sabotage. Here's my rule that keeps this simple. If your debt has an interest rate above 15%, pay it off before investing. That payoff is your investment with a guaranteed return. If it's below 8%, like a mortgage or a car loan, you can invest while making minimum payments. Anything in between requires you to evaluate your personal comfort with risk and your specific situation. Assuming you've got your emergency fund handled and you're not drowning in high-interest debt, let's move to step 2. This is where you choose the account that will either save you thousands in taxes or cost you thousands over the years. Most Americans get this decision wrong simply because nobody explained the difference in plain English. When you think about investing, you probably imagine just opening some investment account and buying stocks. But the type of account you choose is almost as important as what you invest in. The difference could literally mean tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket versus the government's pocket over the next few decades. You've got 2 main options for your first $1,000, and understanding this choice is crucial. Option 1 is a Roth IRA, which for most people under 50 starting out in 2026 is probably your best move. Option 2 is a regular taxable brokerage account, which has its own advantages depending on your goals. Let me break down the Roth IRA first because it's honestly one of the most powerful wealth-building tools available to everyday Americans. You contribute money that you've already paid taxes on. So if you earn $1,000 at your job, taxes come out first. Then you invest. What's left? But here's where the magic happens. Every single dollar of growth in that Roth IRA is completely tax-free. When you withdraw it in retirement, I need you to understand how powerful this is. If you invest $1,000 today and it grows to $40,000 over 30 years, you can withdraw all $40,000 without paying a penny in taxes on that $39,000 gain. The government gets zero. You keep everything. And this advantage compounds over decades of investing. There are rules, of course, because Uncle Sam isn't completely generous. In 2026, you can contribute up to $7,500 per year if you're under 50, or $8,600 if you're over 50. There are also income limits, but if you're just starting with $1,000, you're almost certainly under those thresholds. The main restriction is that your money is generally locked until you're 59.5 years old. You can actually withdraw your contributions anytime without penalty. But the growth portion stays put until retirement age, unless you want to pay penalties and taxes. This brings us to option 2, the taxable brokerage account. With a taxable account, you get complete freedom and flexibility. There are no contribution limits, no income restrictions, and no age requirements for withdrawals. You can invest $1,000 this year, $10,000 next year, or $100,000 whenever you want, and access that money whenever you need it without penalties. The trade-off for this flexibility is taxes on your gains. When your investments make money in a taxable account, you'll owe capital gains taxes when you sell. The good news is, if you hold investments for more than a year, you'll pay long-term capital gains rates, which range from 0% to 20% depending on your income, and these rates are much lower than regular income tax. So which account should you choose for your first $1,000 right now? If you're investing for long-term goals like retirement, and you don't need the money for at least 5 years, the Roth IRA is hard to beat. But if you're saving for a house down payment, starting a business, or want complete access to your money, the taxable account makes more sense. There's no wrong answer here, just different tools for different goals. I personally recommend most people start with a Roth IRA to take advantage of that tax-free growth, but your situation might be different. The important thing is choosing one and getting started rather than being paralyzed by trying to make the perfect choice. Now, we get to step 3, which is where things get really interesting and, honestly, where most people either set themselves up for success or completely sabotage their financial future. We're talking about what to actually buy with that $1,000. And I'm going to give you the specific strategy that's created more millionaires than any complicated Wall Street scheme. But first, let me tell you what not to do, because avoiding these mistakes is more valuable than anything else I'll share today. Do not take your $1,000 and buy stock in whatever company your brother-in-law mentioned at Thanksgiving. Do not buy whatever's trending on social media because some influencer with a Lamborghini says it's going to the moon. And please, for everything that's financially responsible, do not try to day trade your way to wealth. I know day trading looks exciting when you see screenshots of people making thousands in a single day. What they're not showing you are the other 95% of days where they lost money. Day trading with your first $1,000 is like taking your rent money to Vegas and putting it all on Blacksure. You might win, but the odds are stacked against you. Here's what successful long-term investors understand that the get-rich-quick crowd doesn't. Boring wins. Consistency wins. And owning tiny pieces of thousands of companies beats trying to pick the next Amazon. The strategy I'm about to share has beaten 90% of professional fund managers over the long term. And it's so simple that most people think it can't possibly work. We're building what's called a diversified portfolio using index funds. This sounds complicated, but it's actually just a fancy way of saying you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Here's exactly how I'd allocate that $1,000 if I were starting from scratch today. Put 60% to 70% of your money into a total U.S. stock market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. This gives you ownership in hundreds or thousands of the most successful American companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and hundreds more. The beauty of this approach is you don't have to be a genius picking individual winners. You're essentially betting on the entire American economy. Specific funds to look at include Vanguard's VTSAX or Fidelity's FXAIX, or Schwab's SWTSX. These are all slightly different flavors of the same basic idea owning the American stock market. The specific fund you choose matters way less than actually choosing one and getting started. So don't overthink this part. Next, put 20% to 30% into international index funds to diversify beyond just American companies. I know what you're thinking, why invest overseas when American companies are crushing it? The answer is you're spreading your risk across the entire global economy instead of betting everything on one country, no matter how strong that country is. Sometimes international markets outperform the US, sometimes it's the other way around. By owning both, You're positioned to benefit either way. Popular international index funds include Vanguard's VTIAX or VXUS, Fidelity's FTIHX, or Schwab's Swiss. These are all good options that achieve the same goal. The remaining 0% to 10% can go into bonds if you want to be extra conservative. But honestly, when you're young and starting with $1,000, you probably don't need bonds yet. That money could be working harder for you in stock index funds. Bonds become more important as you get closer to retirement and need to protect your wealth rather than grow it aggressively. Now, here's something that might blow your mind about this simple strategy. These basic index funds consistently beat about 90% of professional money managers over 10, 20, and 30-year periods. We're talking about people with Ivy League degrees, expensive suits, and teams of analysts, and your simple buy everything and hold it strategy beats them. Why does this happen when it seems too simple to work? Because when you buy an index fund, you're paying tiny fees, usually less than 0.1% per year. Those active managers charge 1% to 2% annually. Plus, they're constantly buying and selling, which creates taxes and transaction costs that eat into your returns. It's like taking a direct flight versus connecting through 5 different airports because someone thinks they know a better route. Sometimes complicated works, but most of the time you just pay more to arrive at the same destination later. The beautiful thing about this approach is it scales perfectly whether you're investing $1,000 or $1 million. The same strategy works. All right, we've covered the foundation, the account, and what to buy. Now let's talk about step 4, which is setting up the system that turns your one-time $1,000 investment into a wealth-building machine. Because here's the secret that first thousand isn't really about the money. It's about building the habit that will make you wealthy over decades. The most successful investors aren't the ones who started with the most money. They're the ones who figured out how to consistently add money every single month, year after year, regardless of what the market was doing. This is where automation becomes your superpower. That removes all the emotional decision-making that destroys most people's returns. Most brokerage accounts let you set up automatic investments that pull money from your checking account and invest it according to your chosen allocation. Let's say you decide you can invest $150 or $200. Every month, going forward, you set it up once and forget about it. When the market's soaring and you're feeling great, you invest your $200. When it's crashing and you're scared, you still invest your $200. When you're busy and forget about your account, you still invest your $200. This approach is called dollar cost averaging, and it means you automatically buy more shares when prices are low and fewer when prices are high. You're not trying to time the market or figure out if this is a good month to invest. Over 20 or 30 years. This removes the psychological warfare that causes most people to buy high when they're excited and sell low when they're panicked. Let me give you the realistic timeline of what this actually looks like. Your $1,000 today might grow to around $1,700 in 5 years, assuming average market returns. In 10 years, you're looking at roughly $2,600 from that initial investment. In 30 years, that same $1,000 could be worth over $17,000. And that's without adding another penny. But here's where it gets really exciting. If you add just $200 per month to that initial $1,000, in 30 years, you're looking at over $400,000. That's the power of consistency and compound growth. It's not magic. It's just math and time doing the heavy lifting for you. I'm not going to lie and say your first $1,000 changes your life overnight. It won't. But what it does is something far more valuable. It proves to yourself that you can build wealth, that you're capable of making smart money decisions, and that you're not destined to work until you're 80 just to scrape by. That $1,000 is your declaration that you're done accepting financial mediocrity. Here's what I want you to do right now. Today, before you close this video and forget about it, open a Roth IRA or brokerage account. Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab are all excellent choices. Transfer that $1,000 and invest it in a simple 3-fund portfolio like we discussed. 60% US stocks, 30% international, and you're done. Set up automatic monthly contributions of whatever amount you can consistently afford. Even if it's just $50 or $100 to start, The amount matters less than the consistency. Then end. This is crucial. Don't obsess over checking your account every day, watching the balance bounce around. Look, 30 years from now, when that simple decision has grown into something that actually changed your life, you'll look back on today as a turning point. The day you stopped making excuses and started building real wealth. If this video helped you cut through the confusion and actually take action, smash that like button and subscribe to Finance Flash for more no-nonsense money content made for Americans who are serious about building wealth. Drop a comment and tell me, are you starting with a Roth IRA or a taxable account? I read every comment and I want to hear about your journey. Now stop watching and go open that account. Your future self will thank you.